Welcome to Passport Required. I'm Kim Covert, owner and lead travel designer at Silverleaf Travel.
And I'm Gary Covert. Together, we are on a mission to help experienced travelers and would-be travelers get even more informed, inspired, and get moving so that they can enjoy great travel experiences and make memories that will last.
We believe that travel offers so many opportunities to improve the quality of our lives. Travel helps us learn more about the world, ourselves, and those closest to us. It keeps us vibrant, fresh, and connected, and travel helps us celebrate life.
We invite you to join the Silverleaf Travel Facebook page so that we can amplify our impact and help people get off of and stay off of what we'd like to call Someday Island.
We know you're going to love this episode, so let's get after it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode. Love this episode. We're doing another interview. It's with our good friends, Brenda and Jed, who are our neighbors, but we're talking to them about Norway. They went to Norway. They planned it all themselves. This is just an example of not everybody needs a travel agent. Some people love getting into the details and then planning out everything, the hotels and the agendas, and they have the time, they have the energy, they have the interest. But I wanted their feedback for my clients in the future, for anybody who does not want to do this themselves. I can help them plan it. I have not been everywhere in the world. So this is one area I have not been to yet. So like the podcast if you like it, comment if you like it, give us some feedback. I would love to hear any ideas that you might have for us for future episodes. What do you want us to cover? Would love to hear from you guys. So thank you very much for joining us. We love doing this. Please enjoy. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Passport Required. I'm Kim Covert.
And I'm Gary Covert.
And we're here with our good friends, Brenda and Jed, and our neighbors, who just got back from a trip to Norway. I'm very jealous as it's 115 degrees here in Phoenix. So we wanted to talk to them about their wonderful trip to Norway. The pictures were just unfairly pretty, so pretty that they sent us. So we wanted to pick their brain and tips and tricks and things that they would recommend and just hear about their experience in Norway.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this because the destination looked really cool, but also how you guys did it, which I thought was really kind of neat. So, Brenda and Jed, thank you so much for being here. Why don't you get us kicked off and tell us a little bit about this trip to Norway?
Well, hi, Gary and Kim. It's great to hear your voice. Although, we're actually calling from a little bit cooler California. And one of the things that we've been watching is the weather. And when we see 115 on the temperature gauge, it's time for us to get out of town. So that's what we were thinking about. And I think we picked a good time to leave Arizona. We traveled to Norway in June of this year. And really, our emphasis was really getting outside and seeing a lot of scenery and doing something a little different, not just weather-wise, but experience-wise from Arizona. So we picked Norway, and boy, it was a great destination because if anybody's ever seen any kind of travel brochures on Norway, you'll see all this stunning scenery around the fjords, and there's mountains and there's glaciers and really a dramatic coastline. I looked it up. I know there is just thousands of miles of coastline in Norway, and I looked it up before our conversation today, and I think there's over 63,000 miles of coastline just in Norway.
What?
So,
It's unimaginable.
I know.
How is it possible?
So if you like being on the coast and like a lot of the coastal scenery, Norway is a good choice. It has a lot of opportunity for hiking and outdoor activities, boat trips, and things like that. So that's why we picked it. And every time I look at the marketing brochures on Norway, it seems like every picture I see is a postcard. And, when we got there, it just beat our expectation because everywhere you turned around, there was something new. And we took in the hundreds and if not thousands of pictures. And so it just was a great experience for us. And it's really, the thing that people don't know, it's easy to get to because a lot of people go through London to get there. It getting to London is pretty easy. And then it's a 2-hour flight from London.
Oh,
And then
really?
you're in Oslo. So really easy to get to. And, it's, I'd say relatively affordable. It's actually a little cheaper than going to London. If you want to do that for some reason, they price London to be a little more expensive, even though you're continuing on. So I found that to be the case, but easy to get to and just a lot of outdoor opportunities. And that's what attracted us to go in there.
Yeah, you guys are very outdoorsy. You like to hike and stay active and go out and be in nature and do things like that. So I see that being right up your alley. So how long were you there?
So basically, we were there a little over 3 weeks. And I can share with you if you want just a little bit about what we did and what we saw, and maybe some of your listeners might want to hear. We picked a relatively independent way to travel just because we like the flexibility. And I know, Kim, you probably book a lot of people on cruises, and there is a ton of cruises. I didn't realize until I got there. Of course, all the American cruise ships go there, but there's a lot of European cruise ships that visit the coastal destinations. And that'd be a great way to see Norway, because you could do it from the boat. They sail into some of the fjords and do it like that. Or some people even take a cruise, the Hurtigruten cruise, which is more of a ferry, but you can get all the way from north to south of Norway. And so a lot of people do that. A lot of people pick certain destinations. You've probably heard of like Bergen and places like that, and use that as a base because Norway is really an easy country to drive in. So we took a little bit different approach, and we said, well, we want to be flexible. We like hiking. We like outdoors. We don't like to really just relax. And so Norway being in the summer is really the land of the midnight sun. And so you can tour Norway, do your hiking and get back even to a city late at night. And there's still plenty of daylight and a lot of things still to do. So traveling independent is a good way to do it. And so basically we rented a car and we checked on itineraries around the country. And if you do any kind of literature or read any literature or look on the internet, there's a lot of, let's say a 10-day tour or a 13-day tour or an 18-day tour. And so we just kind of tailored around what we like to do. And we picked like an 18-day tour. It was actually probably more of a 2-week tour, but we wanted to extend in a couple of places to maximize our opportunities to do hiking and things like that. So that's what we did. And it worked out real well for us. I can share, just some of the details if you want, but
I do have a question. So doing the cruise, you're going to see obviously more of the coastal towns. Are you going to miss something by doing a cruise? Is there a lot to see more inland that you can see by car or by a coach tour?
Well, what we found is when we went to a lot of the coastal towns, like Bergen or Alisand or Trondheim or Stavanger, and the cruise ships did come in, and certainly there were bus tours that take you or boat tours that take you into the fjords or up on top of the mountains. So you can see just a lot of things if you take a cruise, and of course it's very organized, and from what we saw, it was very well done. You can see quite a lot.
Okay.
But taking a car, and Brenda reminds me a lot of times, she said, when we're out hiking all day and we get back into a town at 6 or 7 in the evening,
the cruise ships are already pulling out.
I love that.
Which is great, right? So when you get there, it's like,
it's not crowded.
Not crowded.
Love that. Restaurants
are, not crowded, and you can walk around. And so the timing is good, when you do it that way.
Smart. And I love that you took an itinerary and made it your own. And like you said, you gave yourself time to really enjoy each location, because that's the challenge with some of these like escorted coach tours. The itineraries are so fast. You're usually only in a location 1 or 2 nights, and that's it. And you're on your way to another location. So if you can take your time and really delve into each location and enjoy yourself. That's a much more enjoyable vacation for many people.
Yeah, you're not having to feel rushed.
Yeah,
To hurry up, get off the bus and
exactly.
stare at everything, and then get back on the bus. So,
Yeah.
And what we found is that even if you look at the tour books and the cruise itineraries, every cruise ship, they'll have a day trip to a city called Flan. And it's on the fjord and it has great viewpoints, but there are so many other viewpoints that are just as good. And then you can do it on your own time. And
Yeah,
sometimes they're just little villages. There might be one little restaurant where you can sip a coffee right by the fjord. And so you're on your own schedule instead of a tour schedule.
That sounds really approachable.
Yeah. And the other thing too is that, I'm part of some Facebook groups that check in and they ask questions about different places. And around Norway, people are afraid to take a car, and the driving is incredibly easy there. And so if you have to hire a car to take you to a church you might want to see, or a waterfall that's 30 miles down the road, very expensive, but the rental rates are probably similar to what we have in the US. And
the gasoline is the one that's different. It's like $8 to $9 a gallon what we were paying.
A bit more expensive than the gasoline.
But the car was a hybrid.
Oh,
and so it was very efficient. Very
nice.
So we didn't feel like we were, spending tons of money on gasoline. So
and how are the signs, the directions, and pretty easy to understand and navigate?
Yeah, I'd say that they were. There's some things that, obviously we had to translate, but you learn pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that's really useful, especially in the cities, because I get nervous in the cities because of the traffic and the roundabout. So Jed, you're really good to getting those roundabouts, which is nice. You're constantly moving, right? In and out, in and out.
Make a mistake, you just keep going around.
Yeah.
Get it next time.
And there's parking. You can park. One of the things is you basically have to pay for parking almost anywhere you go in these big towns. And they have places that you can park big structures, 4 or 5 levels. And it's so easy. It's all automated, I mean, you just use your card, your debit card or whatever, your credit card, and that's it. Everything's so automated there. It's quite amazing how nice it is. We didn't, like Jed mentioned at one time, we never even used cash or exchanged anyone at all.
Phenomenal. You just don't hear that going to another country and never using local currency.
Exactly. Never even saw a local currency, actually.
Oh, wow.
Really, it's kind of odd, but everybody was like that. I mean, every teenagers, all everybody.
That's great.
Yeah.
Everything totally automated.
But one thing about driving, I have to say, is in the city is kind of a little, tricky, but not really tricky. It's just a little more cautious.
Mm-hmm.
Get out to the countryside and you get to these little villages, the roads get really narrow. So it's like a lot of times it's only one car can pass. Mm-hmm. And so you always have to look ahead because there's going to be a pull out every so far. And you pull out, so they come, or they pull out and you come. But it's really narrow when you get to these tiny villages. And that was kind of like, oh boy, I don't know if we want to keep going in there, but I did it. You
did it.
We did it. Then,
got to some amazing places.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is the maximum you could drive is maybe 20 miles an hour because it's very windy and you're looking anyway. So, okay, if you pulled out, let a car pass, it works just fine.
Yeah.
So,
Everybody is great on.
Yeah.
And he may be pulling over a lot just to look at the scenery.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And the locals were really good too.
And everybody was friendly and they were willing to help with directions or
always
any assistance that you needed.
Everybody is so friendly. I think from the first time we got off the plane and we saw the city, was like, wow. And very friendly to everyone, regardless of where you're from. One of the things, that was really surprising to me is immediately pride flags, the multicolor. I mean, everywhere you go. I mean, just like hotels, businesses. And it was like, wow, it was surprising.
Very inclusive culture.
Very inclusive,
I love that.
It was wonderful.
Definitely multinational. There's a lot of Asians and
immigrants.
a lot of people who immigrated to Norway obviously for a better life, but it was a lot more multinational than we ever thought.
Yeah.
Good experience. Yeah.
Very good.
Did you have any challenges with the midnight sun, like sleeping at night? Were the accommodations inclusive of blackout curtains? And
I mean, they did have the blackout curtains, and because otherwise you wouldn't be able to sleep. And when we went to the furthest north we went was a city called Trondheim, and it's at about a little over 63 degrees. So that's pretty close to the polar circle. The official sun set at about 1 a.m, and by 3:30 it was sunrise, but it is always twilight, even when the sun was down. And in all the other cities, the days were at least 20 hours long. So really, really fun experience. We took a lot of photos that you would think are at midday, and it was close to midnight. So yeah.
Wow.
Did you just use your phone as your camera, or did you have a special camera you brought?
Phone.
Really? Those were just your phone?
Just the phone.
Those are beautiful photos.
So what are some of the highlights of your trip? So you're in your car and you're able to go to some interesting places. So what are some of the highlights that...
you can tell us your itinerary.
Yeah. So over the little over 3 weeks, I mean, we did start in Oslo. I think anybody visiting Norway will stop through Oslo. It's a big metropolitan city of about 1 million people. And we usually, when we get somewhere, we usually just have a down day first, and then we go explore, and then we go get the rental car. Oslo is a place, it's a very walkable city. It does have, it's a business center. 1 million out of the 5.5 million people in Norway live in Oslo. And it's a very young, vibrant city with lots of restaurants around the harbor. They got high-end, trendy coffee shops and juice bars and everything from the high-end restaurants. And we actually had, at the end of the pier, there was a group of food trucks. So I ate Vietnamese in Norway, food trucks, Mexican food. And it was just a very multicultural food environment as well. But Norway, if someone, I would give people advice, spend a day there. 2 days would be probably more than enough. The second day might be dedicated to museums and seeing things, a little more cultural activities. We were focused more on the outdoors, so we did a lot of walking around the harbor. There was a lot of young people. Believe it or not, it was June. The water temperature was about 55 degrees in the ocean, and people were swimming and they were jumping off the jetties and just having a good time. It was fun to see all the young people out enjoying the outdoors.
It's funny because the weather, their summer is very short. If there's a sunny day and there's a patch of grass, somebody's going to be there. And it was so funny to just be thinking, wow, we're just walking by this little, open space. And there's people out just like laying out, enjoying the sun and just having a good time, and all ages. So I was just kind of tickled by that because I take it for granted being in Arizona, right?
Yeah, we can't be outside right now.
Yeah, they're looking at those hours of daylight and saying, there's only a few of them, in a year, so they're going to soak it up.
Right, exactly.
But people visiting Oslo, they don't need a car. It's quite walkable. If you don't walk, there's transport, and all the young people have those electric scooters and they're buzzing around too. So it's just a fun city. You can take a harbor cruise, and there's actually a museum. You walk on the roof of it and you see the whole, like a macro view of the harbor area in Oslo itself. But our main part of the trip was seeing the countryside, and I kind of broke it up. There's really like 4 different areas. We went north along the Swedish border. It shares 1,000 miles of border with Norway. But we went, and our trip was really just the southern part of Norway. Norway is about the size of California, just for reference. So we just covered basically the southern half. So first we went north, and that's really characteristic of mountains and quaint towns. But towns that you might be familiar with, like Lillehammer, which hosted the 1994 Olympics. That was part of our itinerary. We went to a town called Røros, which is an old copper mining town. It's actually the oldest wooden buildings in all of Europe, and it's a UNESCO heritage site. And it was really cool to walk through the little town and look where all the miners used to work. And they've turned them into shops and inns and restaurants. And there's a mining museum, and actually there's a stream running through the town. And on the other side of the stream is all the tailings piles. So there are some paths, and Brenda and I walked to the top, and you can see good views all the way around the city from even just the tailing piles. But really a cool little city. So Lillehammer and Røros, and then in between there was a couple of national parks that we visited in the mountains called Rondane and Doverveld National Park. So snow-capped mountains, these glacial streams with just a bright turquoise blue. And one of them had a great viewpoint. The national park was famous for muskox. We didn't see any. They're kind of elusive, but the views from the top were really stunning.
Yeah, they had a glass building.
They had a glass building.
A small glass building
At the top.
At the top. And it was just glass and wood. And it was real comfortable. And it had like a stove in there, wood burning stove. So in the wintertime, you could walk up there and sit in there and just look out.
Yeah.
And it was really like a artistic building.
Yeah.
And for,
with windows all
full-length windows.
Full-length windows.
Yeah.
So anyway, those are some great places. We went north into the mountains and had a great experience. And even at Lillehammer, people might remember the Olympics. There's a ski jump there. And after our hike, we usually there's another ski lift that takes you to the top of the ski jump so you can look down, but that wasn't operating. So Brenda and I decided we're going to hike up all those stairs, and that was
oh my gosh.
And what was kind of remarkable is just looking down, and you think these guys and they do it every Olympics, obviously, and you see it on TV, but when you're at the top and you're looking down, you're thinking these guys are crazier than any daredevil that you would imagine. It's just super steep, and the landing area is like 100 meters off the end of the slope.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's kind of fun to see that. And there's a little Olympic historical stuff in the town as well. The northern part ended in the city that I mentioned called Trondheim, which I mentioned before is at the 63 degrees latitude. But that's a real cool town. It's the third biggest city in Norway. And they have an old city called Bakladet. And I'm probably butchering some of the pronunciation, but
better than I could do.
But basically you have old houses on stilts on the river, very colorful, and they've turned them into shops and restaurants. And there's an old bridge and just a quaint town to walk in, especially in the sunshine. It's a college town. So again, you have a lot of young people and they're just out strolling or they're biking, and just a great city to visit. And so that ended our northern part. And then what we did is we came down the West Coast, and we stopped in some of the cities that you would find normally on the port calls for the cruise ships. We went to a town called Ålesund and Kristiansand. And in between, there's something called the Atlantic Ocean Road. And so we drove on that. And if anybody has ever seen, and you can YouTube the videos, but it's quite popular where, especially when you have stormy weather, you see these waves just crashing across the jetties over the road, and these twisting bridges that go up island to island. And when we were there, the weather was perfect, so we could stop and get out of our car and take really nice videos. But it's really famous because the weather can turn really nasty, but that's kind of part of the attraction, to see the waves crashing over the road.
Do they still drive across the bridge when the weather is inclement?
Well, I do think that there might be some limits, but some of the YouTube videos that I've seen, it's really pretty bad weather, and they're still driving across it. It was perfectly sunny and still, and so we could take good pictures. But the bridges go island to island just along the coast there, and there's little fishing villages and good viewpoints. So a great experience navigating between Kristiansand and Alisand. Alisand is a huge port call. We saw 2 big ships there, but it has a real quaint town center around the harbor with restaurants, and there's a lot of hiking opportunities around there too. So we enjoyed that.
There's always a peak in the town. So you can always hike up to that peak and get a 360 view. What we tried to find every time we went somewhere like that.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So then we turned our attention more to the interior, and this is actually the favorite part. The glaciers, they start in the mountains, and some of the glaciers can carve fjords that are 120 miles long. So the water of the fjord ends on the port cities, and when you're on a cruise, you'll go into the fjord. So we actually drove into the fjords, and that was really our favorite part, just the scenery. And if anybody wants to check it out, you can see any video on the fjords. There are these cliffs that are extending from the water between 3,000 and 5,000 feet and up. And then there's this narrow fjord. And that's what makes it so unique is the fjord might be 2 or 3 miles wide, and you're just right in this canyon. And on all sides, you have waterfalls and you have small farms that are up in the hills. It's just really super scenic. And as you drive, you're on these narrow roads that Brenda mentioned before, and lots of opportunities to stop. The small towns have coffee, look at the fjords. For people who like to hike, there's plenty of hiking and stuff to do along the way.
So one other thing too is these farms it talks about, you can barely see them, right? Because they're there, but they're like on the incline. They actually start on an incline, and it's and between trees, and you might be able to spot some of them. So
I wonder how they get up there and
all their
equipment and
but because it's so steep as well, if you're trying to, the roads had to cut into the mountain, and so you're going through a lot of tunnels as you're driving as well. And it's amazing because those tunnels, the engineering it took to cut through those mountains, because that's the only way you really to get through without having to go through the water. And so you're always in and out of tunnels. And it's just the way that they built them. It's quite an engineering feat, in my opinion.
Yeah.
that'd be fun.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the accessibility for an English-speaking person. So you were talking about finding these different trails and things that are in probably kind of rural areas. Was this fairly accessible from a language point of view?
Yeah, it was actually the outdoor activities are very easy to navigate. Anywhere there's hiking, it's usually the signposts are very well done. There's the local maps. And then as a hiker, we use something here in the States called All Trails. It worked just perfectly in Norway as well. So if you're,
Good to know.
So when you're off in the wilderness, it uses the GPS on your phone. You download the map ahead of time and you can see exactly where you are. And worst case, you can get back to where you started from. But I would say that most of the trails are very well marked and well known. And even in what we would consider remote, we would always see at least a few hikers. And the more popular hikes, you would see a lot of hikers.
Right.
So, but we really enjoyed the interior, the fjords. There's also a lot of glaciers. We hiked up to 3 different glaciers in 2 different national parks. And that was really a cool experience because you go up past waterfalls, and then there's the glacial streams, and then there's the turquoise glacial lake, and then you're right there on the glacier.
They're calving, right? So they're breaking off, chunks are breaking off, and you're seeing it, and then they're flowing down, down the river. And
That's cool.
Ice coming down and, melting as they're coming down. And the breeze is just blowing off there. So pretty chilly, but for us, it was like, oh, this is great.
That was heaven.
Yeah, we're sitting out there for a long time, and everybody else is like getting up and getting back down. We're just sitting there because it's so nice to have the wind come off the ocean.
In general, how strenuous were the hikes that you did?
I would say some of them were quite strenuous,
strenuous.
but there's certainly if you do some research or if you look at all trails, there's hikes for every ability.
Mhm.
We didn't do some of the really straight. I mean, you can do 5,000 vertical feet. That would take a lot of preparation, but we stayed to day hikes and usually there's just plenty of opportunities for that.
Mhm.
And with everything marked so well, you could take your time and just kind of follow the trail.
Are there any hot springs in Norway?
No, Norway doesn't really have any kind of geothermal activity, like something like an Iceland or something like that. No hot springs that you can
Okay.
relax.
I was curious, just yeah.
Yeah, you see
I
the
was
ones
thinking
in
about
Iceland.
Iceland
You think
and-
about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
The only thing that was not there were the saunas. They had these saunas that they had at
Mm.
these bigger cities.
Mhm.
Trendy thing right there on the coast. And they're like little boxes with that are glassed in, and people go in there, these saunas, they get all hot and sweaty, and then they get out and then they jump right into the ocean. And so they had these floating, they're called floating saunas.
Yeah.
We saw it all over the place. So
Thank
that,
you. I'll stay in the sun.
The interior was just beautiful. We stayed in a couple little towns, just overlooking the fjords. We did a lot of hiking, went up to the glaciers.
no.
Yeah, we actually, so we finished the interior, going back out to the coast, then heading back to the southern part toward Oslo again. We decided to take a little detour and we went up through the mountains, and there's a whole bunch of snowfields still in June, and some of the snow was higher than the car.
Well,
So yeah, it was kind of interesting. It went from the green forests that are on the hillsides of the fjords to really alpine tundra type scenery. And so that was a good balance and a little bit of an unexpected surprise that I didn't expect to see such alpine scenery there as well.
With cabins, people have cabins. They're very remote, but people still have cabins out there.
Yeah.
One thing that we've learned from a lot of we met some local folks, and it's very common people there to have a cabin. Yeah, in the most remote places.
I'm curious, did you make most of your hotel arrangements in advance, or did you just make them kind of on the fly as you went along?
No, we did make all the reservations in advance, and that's why we planned if we wanted to stay extra in case, because like one of the places we stayed, Stavanger, which was one of the last places. It has a very famous hike, and we wanted extra time in case the weather turned. So you just kind of planned, and we got lucky. But starting in June, Norway does get a little bit busy. I think you could probably make spur of the moment plans, but the hotels do get fairly booked up because the season is fairly short. So yeah, I'd recommend that you go ahead and pre-plan it, and you might have some flexibility maybe in the bigger cities, but the smaller cities where we stayed in interior, there was only like one restaurant in the whole town and maybe 2 hotels. So you don't have a lot of choice.
And did you stay in mostly just standard hotels, or did you stay in any like bed and breakfasts?
We had one bed and breakfast, which is an old farm that was in someone's family for over 100 years. And it was really super nice. Otherwise we stayed in hotels, and very comfortable hotels, just
Nice.
kind of like a normal business style hotel. You would equate it to, I don't know, a Hilton type. There's a couple of chains there that we focused on. Oh, Ton, Thon, Ton hotel chain.
Tun.
Tun.
They call it Tun. Their pronunciation, we would say Thon. They go, but they would say Tun, even though it's Hon.
Mm-hmm.
Tun Hotel. So, like,
No H and the O is a U.
yeah, some of the letters are silent. So it's very Stavanger and it's Stavanger. So they would correct us. It's like, oh, okay, that's right, that's silent.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of the fun of the learning their language.
Yeah.
Did you learn the word for stop, like as in a stop sign?
Gosh.
We did, but they do have the international stop signs, but we had to learn the words for in and out. So you go in the right way in the parking lot.
right. That's right.
A lot of one ways, I'm sure.
Yeah. But good experience. We kind of finished the tour in a couple of places. You've heard of Bergen. It's on everybody's list of Norway. Every cruise ship in the world will stop in Bergen. It's the second largest city. It was great. When we went to Norway, I've got to tell you, my expectations were very high, and Norway beat our expectations. Bergen maybe didn't quite. I think it's one of those cities, because of everybody visiting, it was a little bit overloved. And but it's still a great place. It was a little bit expensive. They had a fish market out by the port, and it was very expensive. It wasn't even high-end restaurants, but it was $150 for a meal. And so you had to get a little bit off the tourist track to find local food and things like that. That was probably one of our least favorite cities, and even though it had our highest expectations. But that's just our personal opinion of it. And then we rounded it out basically in a city called Stavanger. And if you've ever seen any literature on Norway, you'll see this very famous monolithic rock. It's about 2,000 feet off the water in the fjord, and it's a flat top rock, and it's about 75 feet by 75 feet. They filmed the Mission Impossible Fallout episode from there, where Tom Cruise had a famous fight scene right over the fjord, and he went over the cliff. And that's one of the famous hikes. And if you see any Norway brochure, that will be on it. So from Stavanger, it's a good jumping off point to go to that hike. It's about 45 minutes from Stavanger. So we went out there, and that was pretty much a full day hike to get to the top, but stunning views. I think I sent you guys a picture with us, a little heart symbol, but that's one of the things that really attracted us to Norway, because that picture alone just kind of sums up for us what Norway's about: the fjords, the mountains, and just the outdoor activities.
So that was the toughest hike, Gary. That was
the hardest one. Huh?
It was the hardest one. A lot of very steep, a lot of steps of stone. They hugged it out in the rock, and a lot of those steps are really tall. Yeah, you got to be pretty careful, I think, going up, because some of the paths are narrow, and it's very popular, so people coming and going. And just be a little bit careful about passing each other and taking your time, because it was pretty steep. But
did you wear hiking shoes during your hikes, or trail shoes, or?
Yeah, we took our hiking boots, and so we had the full gear. But for people who just like the outdoors, I mean, there are plenty of opportunities. If you just want to be in your sneakers, you could do it.
Yeah, you could do that in other places
and still be out in the outdoors.
Yeah, there's all kinds of levels.
Yeah.
What is the food like in Norway?
Okay, so I'm really particular about the food. So if it's just like you go on Norwegian food, it's very similar to American: pizza, hot dog, hamburger.
Oh, really?
Very popular. And we were really surprised because I
thought it'd be a lot of fish.
There is fish too, but those are so popular, right? They're just so popular with the locals. There really wasn't any food that you say, hey, this is Norwegian,
Other than the salmon.
The salmon, because they have salmon farms in the fjords, and it's delicious. And we had it at breakfast, as a matter of fact. The breakfast there, outstanding. Outstanding. It's the very best. They have everything. I mean, they had the smoked salmon. They had some other smoked whitefish. They've had all kinds of cheeses. The one cheese that we really like called brown cheese. And it's kind of sweet, a little sweet, because the milk is caramelized. It's like goat and cow milk combination.
It's
very, very creamy. And so we had all kinds of and fruits and different kinds of breads. They even have salad, like vegetables and muesli and yogurts, and it's just huge. It's just so huge. that's probably our very best meal of the day was breakfast.
All the hotels seem to compete with each other. And
Yeah.
it's really breakfast is the main, everyone will include breakfast,
Yeah.
but they really just roll out the red carpet.
Yeah. Exactly.
You got to fuel up for the hikes.
You got to get your
Yeah.
go power.
And it worked out well. But yeah, actually the food to eat, like she said, was not so interesting. So
Yeah.
we mainly ended up finding a local Asian restaurant. Like I said, it's multicultural there.
Yeah.
We had a kebab or something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The best way was like, okay, here's the tourists where they eat. Let's just go 2 streets up.
Yeah, go
And
somewhere
there-
else.
There's the neighborhood. So you just don't let the people that live in the neighborhood go.
I love
And
that.
it was really nice. It was really nice.
Is there anything that you would have done differently on this trip? Sounds like it was just really idyllic and you really had a great, met and exceeded your expectations, but anything that you might have done a little bit differently?
I don't know that anything differently except extend the time.
Exactly.
I mean,
That's what I was gonna say.
Just more.
Longer, go longer.
one of the things that I see when I'm on these bulletin boards is that people will say, we're going to visit Bergen, Stavanger, Oslo, and try to do it in a week. And,
Never. Yeah.
and if you look on the physical map in a little over 3 weeks, we actually drove about 2,100 miles. So the distance between the towns is only 100 miles, but a lot of times because the winding roads,
Mm-hmm.
you have to take a ferry from one side to the other, and it does take a long time. And so don't try to rush it. If people have a week, maybe just limit to a couple of places. So spend as much time as you can afford to take. And I guess we could have spent a lot more time even on the southern part of Norway. So
Do you think you would have added on another week or two, or what do you?
I think easily there's plenty to do for another week or two. You could easily, if you're an outdoor enthusiast. The other thing too that people would consider is, and we built it into our plan, is that the weather can be kind of bad. We were lucky we didn't get one drop of rain, but that was very unusual. So every hike and every outdoor activity we had planned, we could do. If it's super foggy,
So lucky.
if it's super foggy and rainy, it would be difficult. So people, like if you wanted to do the Pulpit Rock hike, we stayed in the area for 3 days in case we couldn't do it the first day, second day, then we'd have another shot at doing it. It was something that was kind of on our bucket list just because of the weather. It turned out well for us, but the day before we did the Pulpit Rock hike, there was a couple that we saw at the top, and they came up the day before, and the weather was fine, but the fog had set in, and so they saw nothing. So you have to account for that in Norway. It's on the coast, and you do get iffy weather sometimes.
Years ago, I went up to the Grand Canyon, and the park ranger, was collecting money, and he said, visibility is 0. And I looked at him, it's like, it's the Grand Canyon. How can you have 0 visibility? You get up there. Yeah, it was totally clouded in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one other thing about the ferries, we took a lot of ferries to get around. And so we drive the car into them.
Love it.
And then you drive off, and that's really fun. And so you get out of the car and you can go in to the galley and sit down. One interesting thing is that it's very safe and people are very honest. So they'll have a place where they sell snacks, and you just go in there and you just, put your money and buy your snack and walk out. Nobody's there, right?
No one's tending it.
no
No
one's
monitoring.
no. So they trust in you to be an honest person to do that. And I thought, holy moly, that was in the U.S.
That would never work here.
That would never work. Never work. Everybody's very honest. I swear to God, very honest. And so I was kind of tickled about that. But we enjoyed the ferry rides just as much as driving. And I would like
built-in excursion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
It
Boat
really
ride
is.
on the lake. Yeah, when you're talking about building in time, that happens a lot with, say, people who want to go see the Northern Lights, and I'll book them a trip, and it's not guaranteed. So try to build a little extra time just in case you don't see it the first night or the second night or the third night. Same thing. So yeah, that's a great advice.
Do you think you'll go back?
Absolutely. We want to see the northern part of Norway. So that'll be next on the list in a future trip. There's also an island called Svalbard, and the island where Spitsbergen is, and they take a lot of Arctic cruises. So we'd like to tour that island as well. So there's a lot more to see in Norway for us, and we'll definitely do it.
Excellent. Oh, that's exciting.
Well, you did a very good job of pronouncing all the cities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we like to ask each other from time to time at different places we go, like what was the best money that we spent on a trip? So I'll ask you. So Brenda and Jed, maybe you might have the same answer, might have different answers, but what's the best money that you spent on that trip?
Well, a little bit of everything, doing the independent tour and having our own car, I think allowed us the flexibility to do just about anything we wanted. As far as adventure, the one thing that, just was our bucket list was the hike that we talked about, the whole Pulpit Rock. So, didn't really spend money on doing it. It was a free hike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Best memory.
Yeah. Best memory for sure.
Jealous.
Brenda, you did mention to me about how impressed you were about the ice cream, and maybe it was the chocolates too. Maybe it was just the ice cream.
It's excellent. And I think because it's so clean there and they're very conscientious about the environment, and the cows, you can see the cows all the time eating the grass on the side of the mountain and everything. And we saw where the milk factory was too. And so every time we stop, we get a yogurt or an ice cream or chocolate. Is like excellent. So I told one of the folks we met at the B&B, I said, you know what? You have the very, very best chocolate and milk. And she said, yeah, because that's one of the things we miss when we go out to the country is their milk and their cheese and that kind of a thing.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing chocolate you brought back.
Yeah. Oh my God. And that's just a typical candy bar in every grocery store. That's nothing special. That is nothing special. So
well, it was special. We're glad that you shared it with us. But after you go back again, go find us something special.
Chocolate.
Please do.
Okay, that's the deal.
That's the best dollar you ever spent was the chocolate.
Yeah.
Best dollar you spent for me. Thank you. Anything else that was unexpected from Norway? I know you planned it. You knew what you wanted to see and how you wanted to see it, but was there anything else that might have surprised you?
The one thing that surprised me is the cleanliness. And
ultra clean.
You go and you're driving on all the highways. They don't even use billboards. They're not allowed. So there's not all this junk advertisements on the road. There's not any candy wrappers and drink bottles anywhere. People clean up, and when you get a takeaway, everything is recyclable, and they're very conscientious of the environment. And so everywhere you go, it's just super clean. That really surprised us a lot. So
I love that.
Awesome.
Was there anything else you wanted to add about your trip you want to mention or
just
leave out?
If you're in the small town, just be aware that at 7 p.m. they close up. So if you want to eat, you better get something pretty quick.
Wow. Did you bring some snacks with you on this trip just in case?
Yeah, we would go to the supermarket and grab some stuff because there were times we were late and there was no place to eat. So we would just have a couple of snacks that we had from the grocery store, that we bought earlier. So that's just something to be aware of. When you're traveling in a small town.
Yeah.
They roll up the sidewalk early.
Maybe that's one reason that those breakfasts look so enticing.
Everybody's starving because they didn't have dinner.
That is true. Yeah,
Awesome.
I mean, the big city, you can find the tourist restaurant.
Right,
But in the smaller towns, if you have some of your travelers go, it's something, and I see it on all the bulletin boards, got finished with our hike and there's not a restaurant open. Even in the big cities, the local restaurants will close. They don't eat late there.
No.
So by 7:30, they're closed up.
Well, that kind of viewpoint is good for me. I hear about people in Spain, for example, and they go to dinner at 9 or 10 or 11. I was like, are you kidding me?
That's right.
Yeah, I'm good for being done with dessert by 7. That's good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your views and your experience with this. I think a lot of people find this really interesting.
Yeah. And this is helpful for me as well. Obviously, I haven't been everywhere. It's on my list, but I've never been to Norway yet, but I will get there. I do have a good friend in Norway if she's listening to this. Hi, Katrina. She's my old roommate. So definitely on the list. So thank you so much for your feedback. That really does help. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. I really do appreciate it and all your knowledge and feedback and tips and tricks. It's been great. This has been a great episode. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Well, and hope to see you guys soon. We'll be back in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to make sure the house didn't melt. So,
Yeah.
Right.
So everyone grab your passport. Let's go. Thanks for listening to Passport Required. Please be sure and join the Silverleaf Travel Facebook page so that we can connect with you. It is also a great place to share your own travel tips, experiences, and wisdom with the Silverleaf Travel community.
If you got something out of this episode, we would love it if you would subscribe and also give us a rating and review. We always want to get better, and we will read all of your comments and suggestions for topics so that we can make this podcast the best resource possible. My name is Gary Covert.
And I'm Kim Covert. Thanks for listening, and thank you for being a part of the Silverleaf Travel community.